Let's get on with our experts and try and understand and engage what exactly one should do in the markets. We also have Mayuresh Joshi joining us right now. Very good afternoon to you, Mayuresh. Also, thank you, Kunal, as well as Aditya, for waiting by very patiently. And Mayuresh, yes, we're in thick of the earnings season, and looks like this time around, if you look at these FMCG majors, HCL and Nestle have come out with their numbers. Well, the street is not liking that much of their commentary. Should one read too much into it, or let this quarter pass by and then maybe gauge how the FMCG counters will actually perform, given the fact that you will have the tax bonanza also at play?
No, absolutely. I think the two facets for FMCG volume growth are clearly hinging upon urban and rural consumption, and specifically rural consumption. Now, the expectations of a rural consumption uptake of what we've probably seen in the last few months gets accentuated by the fact that if there is normal monsoons, which is widely expected this time round because of La Nina conditions, the Kharif season might be extremely good, followed by an equally good Rabi season, which means the discretionary spending on the rural side should come back very, very strongly. Almost 55 to 60% of volume growth for a large part of the FMCG pool comes in from the rural market. Obviously, with the tax cuts and the bonanza that has been given out, a large part of volume growth expectations in the urban and the semi-urban markets should largely be coming back as well. And then for the second half of this financial year is when I think you will see significant amount of uptake happening because of all these tailwinds coming together. Obviously, Q4 might be subdued because consumption still remains a little bit soft and patchy in all the areas as we are speaking. As far as comes to input costs, they've largely stabilized as we speak. And if they continue on the same trend, the kind of margin performance that can come through steady state in the first half and improvement in the second half will create operating leverage. And the expectation in terms of volumes backed by demand, by pricing, with better margins expected to come through, can bring about better cash flows, which these companies have been struggling in the last few quarters because of tepid demand and other factors. So yeah, I think second half, is where the recovery might actually start coming through for FMCG companies. At this point of time, I think a few of the beverage companies, something like Radico Khaitan is something we're preferring on our watch list. Volumes expected to remain steady. Expectations in terms of pricing expected to remain steady and in their favor. Input cost, ENA, molasses, glass prices remain extremely stable as well. And therefore, I think we are a little bit picky and choosy within the FMCG space. But again, our own expectations is that the second half of next year, of this financial year, would largely bring about earnings recovery for the large part of the FMCG.
But are you liking the mid-cap IT space by any chance, Mayuresh? Given the fact that IT, it's a no-go area for most of them at this point in time, given the fact what is happening globally, the uncertainty is rising. No doubt HCL Tech's guidance was much better than the street had anticipated. On back of that, you saw this entire IT pack see a good solid move yesterday's trading session. But what's your take? How should one actually play the IT theme, given the fact that, yes, these are strong, sustainable business and having global exposure? What's your take? Would it be a mid-cap IT play or a large-cap one if you would want to go for it right now?
No, so honestly, I think it still looks a little hazy, and therefore I think we will wait out for the next few weeks. Let the Trump tariff deadline probably come close. What probably comes out of that at the end of 90 days? How many countries negotiate? What happens with China? How do we strike a deal? And therefore, I think what will be the global macro positioning at the end of the 90-day period is going to be extremely critical. Obviously, I think looking at commentary specifically for a few large names, a few mid-cap names as well, the macro environment still looks a little bit tentative. Expectations in terms of discretionary spending still looks back-ended. And the hope is that the second half of this calendar year, orders will start coming through. A lot more stability will start coming through for the sector and for a lot more as far as BFSI retail manufacturing is concerned, both in North America as well as the European regions. Having said that, our own sense is that HCL Tech proved to be an outlier among the large cap names. Persistent had a decent set of numbers within the mid cap space. We would ideally like to watch out for Mphasis numbers as well, which are expected today, because they've done a lot of work as far as generative AI is concerned. And if they're able to give a decent set of numbers with decent commentary as far as Gen AI, I think that is the segment which is expected to roll out and do very, very well from an IT perspective as well. And therefore, I think we would love to watch out for Mphasis number. To answer your question, at this point of time, we're waiting and watching. We just want to see over the next few weeks how things play out on the global macro scale. and then probably take a call on the sector as well.
Wait and watch mode when you talk about what exactly is happening with the IT space, given the fact that you have a lot of commentary coming in and day out, and it tends to get a tad bit difficult to actually gauge that sort of a space. But Mayuresh, coming back to you, I wanted to understand about your take, especially when you talk about the financial space, because, all bets are now riding pretty high on the banking space. But when you talk about the financial space, leave aside banks, you also will have the NBFCs, you will have the entire financialization theme also at play. So in that you could also add maybe a not capital goods, I beg your pardon, it's capital market play as well. So when you talk about this entire space, do you look at it wholly like an entire BFSI space? And which one are you liking in that apart from banks?
But again, I think it's a consensus call. I think most analysts, whether it's fundamental or technicals, are liking the space as a whole. Obviously, from a fundamental perspective, the valuations still seem to be reasonable. The expectation in terms of earnings growth expected to continue. In terms of balance sheet expansions, continues for the space as a whole. And the tailwind and the backdrop obviously becomes an interest rate cut cycle. So if you're probably looking at an interest rate cut cycle at some point of time in the second half, globally and locally as well, I think that creates additional tailwinds and buffers. Obviously, what RBI has done in terms of liquidity provisions for the banking system as a whole, what RBI has done in terms of the risk weightages in the past few weeks, the past few months, that has given good enough confidence for the system. And therefore, I think if you leave aside banks, insurance as a space, again, I think largely expected set of numbers, how the growth dynamics play out, specifically in terms of APE numbers, in terms of VNBs, and ultimately in terms of the embedded value itself is going to be very, very critical. Obviously, the product mix is changing, and therefore, I think the kind of commissions that are getting charged as a percentage of the overall cost structure still remains elevated as far as a large part of the insurance pool is concerned. And therefore, I think if you focus on NBFCs selectively, our own sense is that select housing finance NBFCs might continue doing well. Case in point, PNB housing, the affordable segment that they're foraying into, obviously a high yielding segment, but an equally risky segment as well. But the experience that they've probably gathered from the emerging segment over the past few years gives them the confidence in terms of credit underwriting for the affordable segment that they're probably foraying into. And therefore, I think the kind of book that they've probably got, which is largely retail oriented, 70% housing, a large part of the self-employed pool is also asset-backed to a large degree. And therefore, asset quality pressures should not be too accentuated in terms of housing finance balance sheets. And therefore, PNB housing, Camfin Homes probably looks like a very interesting bet. Within the broader universe, the microfinance stress might still continue as far as Q4 is concerned. But again, with the expectations of urban and rural recovery expected to happen, a large part of this MSME pool might actually start recovering as far as earnings is concerned as we head into Q1, Q2 of this financial year. But at this juncture, I think housing finance companies within the NBFC space, ratings, rankings, institutional holding, as we look at it from a canceling perspective, all look very, very attractive.
Let me come to you, Mayuresh, get your take on the pharma sector, because today that one is an outlier along with metals, given the fact that it is seeing a very solid up move. But there are a lot of stocks moving on stock-specific news flow. For example, you have Citi's note that has actually made sure that DVs is trading well in trade today. They've upped the target price. You also have Lupin, Eris Life Sciences. They are gaining on the insulin market share prospects. But how should one actually play the pharma theme, given the fact that there's a lot of news flow that is marring their performance for this one?
So I think there should be consistency in reported numbers as far as the entire sector is concerned. And therefore, our take is that with a lot of work that has been happening specifically in terms of select NDAs, select ANDAs, select FTFs, the specialty pipeline that a lot of leadership stocks within the space have probably developed. A few of these pipeline drugs are in late stages as well. And therefore, I think the market size of these drugs is pretty huge. The margins at which these drugs might come into the market are pretty huge as well. And the exclusivity period works for them as well. And therefore, I think pharma companies selectively should continue doing well as far as earnings is concerned. Our own sense is that the resilience shown by a few large cap pharma companies might actually continue. The RS ratings as we see it, the EPS ratings as we see it for a few companies indicate that the price stability is backed by earnings stability. And therefore, a stock like Sun Pharma, which we continue holding in our global portfolios, and all the arguments that are put forth, very strong pipeline that they've probably got, expectations in terms of resolutions of the plants, if any, which have been FDA, which are having FDA concerns if they get resolved. I think that adds fillip in terms of more earnings or improvement in earnings expected to come through. So I think a few of the leadership stocks like Sun is something that we continue holding. Within the mid-cap universe, Strides Pharma as an example is something that will continue doing well. The merger that probably has happened of the acquisition itself will mean that the overall EBITDA margins, the overall ROEs, what we look at as a benchmark at 18.5%, completely satisfies our earnings very, very satisfies. It's a pipeline of drugs that it probably possesses and the return ratios that it probably has with a very, very healthy balance sheet gives us the strength with a very solid institution holding as we see it in Cancer. So I think a couple of stocks I think continue to hold and like in the pharma portfolio.